At some point today, you probably talked to yourself, maybe out loud, maybe in your head. Maybe you called yourself an idiot when you spilled your coffee. Maybe you gave yourself a pep talk before a difficult conversation. Maybe right now, there is a voice in your head reading these words along with you. Most people assume this is just a quirk, a habit, maybe a sign of loneliness or anxiety. But what if your inner voice is one of the most sophisticated tools the human brain ever developed? And what if losing access to it is one of the most disorienting things that can happen to a person? Psychologists call it inner speech, and it is far more complex than most people realize. Research from the University of Nevada found that people spend between 25 and 50% of their waking hours engaged in some form of inner speech. A quarter to a half of your entire conscious life is spent talking to yourself, and it is not random noise. Brain imaging studies show that inner speech activates Broca's area, the same region used for spoken language. Your brain does not know the difference between saying something out loud and saying it silently to yourself. It fires the same way either time, which means every time you think in words, you are essentially having a conversation with yourself in real time. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky spent years studying this. He found that inner speech is not something adults develop, it's something children never lose. Children talk out loud while they play, while they draw, while they solve problems. They are not being odd. They are doing exactly what their brain needs. We just learn to move that voice inward. Here is something that will change how you think about ancient humans. For most of history, people did not think of their inner voice as themselves. The ancient Greeks believed the voice in their head was literally a god speaking to them, not a metaphor. They genuinely heard it as external. Historian Julian Jaynes argued in his controversial 1976 book that ancient humans were effectively bicameral. Their brain's left hemisphere generated speech, and the right hemisphere heard it as a voice from outside. When Homer's heroes needed guidance, they did not deliberate internally. A god appeared and told them what to do. Jaynes believed that was not poetic fiction. That was how they actually experienced their own thinking. Whether or not you agree with Jaynes, and many scholars do not, the underlying point is fascinating. The idea that the voice in your head is you is actually a relatively recent development in human consciousness. For thousands of years, people externalized their inner voice into gods, spirits, ancestors, and muses. The muse that inspired ancient poets was not a metaphor for creativity. It was the inner voice, heard as something outside the self. Your inner voice is ancient. The idea that it belongs to you is much newer. So what is actually happening in your brain when you talk to yourself? When you generate inner speech, your brain sends what neuroscientists call an efference copy, a prediction of what you are about to say, to your auditory cortex. This is how your brain stops you from hearing your own thoughts as external sounds. It pre-cancels the signal before you perceive it. But in some conditions, extreme stress, sleep deprivation, psychosis, that cancellation system breaks down, and suddenly your own inner voice sounds like it is coming from outside you, from another person, or another presence entirely. This is the neurological basis for auditory hallucinations, not a mysterious external force. Your own voice, misfiled by your own brain. Research from Cambridge found that people who experience auditory hallucinations show reduced activity in exactly the areas responsible for that pre-cancellation signal. The voice was always theirs. The brain just stopped labeling it correctly. On the other end of the spectrum, some people report having almost no inner voice at all. Psychologist Russell Hurlburt has spent decades interviewing people about their inner experience using a method called descriptive experience sampling. His findings: a significant portion of people, perhaps 25%, have very little inner speech. They think in images, in feelings, in abstract senses that never become words. Neither experience is wrong, but the difference is profound, and most people never realize others experience thinking so differently. Here is where it gets personal. Research from Ethan Cross at the University of Michigan found that how you talk to yourself matters enormously for your mental health. Specifically, whether you use first person or third person makes a measurable difference. People who talk to themselves in third person, "Why is Sarah so anxious about this?" instead of "Why am I so anxious about this?" show significantly lower emotional reactivity. It creates what researchers call psychological distance. A tiny shift in pronoun puts your brain into a slightly more observer-like state, less reactive, more regulated. Elite athletes do this instinctively. LeBron James famously referred to himself in third person constantly and was widely mocked for it. Turns out he was accidentally using one of the most effective self-regulation techniques neuroscience has identified. Your inner voice is also your primary tool for planning, rehearsing, and simulating the future. Every time you mentally rehearse a difficult conversation, replay an argument, or imagine how something will go, that is your inner voice running a simulation. And research shows that simulation is not just mental practice. It activates the same neural pathways as the real experience. The boundary between imagining something and experiencing it is far thinner than most people think. Your inner voice is not commentary on your life. It is actively shaping it. So what do you actually do with this? First, notice what your inner voice sounds like. Most people have never stopped to actually listen. Is it critical? Anxious? Rushed? Does it speak to you the way a good friend would or the way your worst critic would? Because here's the thing, your inner voice learned its tone from somewhere. From a parent, a teacher, an early experience that told you what you were worth. And unlike most things you inherited, this one you can actually change. The second thing, use it deliberately. When you are anxious, shift to third person. Use your own name, step into the observer role. Research shows this works even when you know what you are doing. The brain responds to the pronoun shift regardless of whether you understand the mechanism. And the third thing, do not silence it. Modern culture treats constant mental chatter as a problem to be meditated away, but research suggests the inner voice serves a deeply important function in emotional processing, memory consolidation, and self-understanding. The goal is not a silent mind. The goal is a mind you are in conversation with rather than at war with. At night, when the noise of the day settles, there will be a voice, quiet or loud, gentle or harsh, running through the events of the day, replaying moments, rehearsing tomorrow. That voice has been with you your entire life. It was there when you were 5 years old, talking yourself through a problem you did not have words for yet. It was there the first time you felt embarrassed, the first time you were proud of yourself, the first time you knew something was wrong before you could explain it. Ancient humans heard it as the voice of the gods. Medieval scholars called it the voice of conscience. Scientists now call it inner speech. But the name was never the point. The point is that somewhere in the evolution of the human brain, something extraordinary happened. We became capable of talking to ourselves, of stepping outside the present moment and having a conversation with our own mind. No other species does this, not like we do. That voice is not noise. It is not a symptom. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is the most human thing about you.